Hello everyone. We are going to do a kind of advanced CCU guide. I already have a CCU guide already on my channel in the tutorials and explanations playlist, so go and check that out before you watch this one, or else some of the terms might not make sense to you. I'm going to assume that you've watched that video when you come to this one, and we're just going to go straight into kind of how the chaining works, not so much what the terms mean. So if you want to know what terms like CCU or LTI and all those things mean, make sure you watch the video. It should be linked either in the description or in the comments in a pinned comment. So we're going to jump straight into it. We're going to start here with an Aurora. So if you're wondering how this works, essentially what you're doing is you're starting from one ship and you're taking that ship and its value and upgrading to another ship. So just a very simple combination here. If I wanted to upgrade from the Aurora ES to the P-52 Marlin, it would cost me $5. Now, this $5 can either be in credits, as in credits that you have saved because you have melted things, which means you have replaced things that you purchased before with credits that can be spent, or with real money. Now, when it comes to buying upgrades, what we are trying to find are war bond upgrades, which require you to spend real money. So if we go down here, you can see there's all these say in stock, ship value, and then it says the value of the ship. But if you go down enough, you'll start to see this where it says 2 option available. When I click on this, you will see there are 2 different types, the War Bond Edition, the Standard Edition. If you buy the War Bond Edition, then you must pay this price for the upgrade. And this must be in cash. Now, you might say, well, why would I pay $55 from an upgrade from this to this? Well, you don't have to. What you do is you find the closest ship as far as price. This ship is $80, right? But this is the war bond price. This is how much you'll actually be paying. So the ship that you find must be below this price, not below this price, because this is the actual price you're paying. So what you are looking for is the ship that is closest in price without meeting this number. So in this case, I cannot use $75 ships if I want to get this War Bond CCU. The closest I could get is a $70 ship. Now, when we are selecting which ship that we are going to go from, generally it depends on which ships we own, and it depends on what other CCUs we have. So for this one, this is our initial CCU. So we're going to assume that I'm starting with a starter ship. The Sulian is a commonly available starter ship. So I would want to start with that. Let's say the G12A, right? Not only is it a more expensive one, but the G12A is not a common ship. We do not like to start these CCU chains with ships that are only rarely available, right? We want to start it with something that's commonly available. So if we were to purchase this, notice this prices went from 55 to 5. So this is all the money that we actually have to spend if we actually want to purchase this ship, rather than the 55 if we would have purchased it from the Aurora ES. So what is this screen then? This is the war bond. What I would call this is a $5 Sulian to Spartan war bond, which also saves me $5. So it costs $5 and it saves me $5. That's a 50% savings. So what you're trying to get to anytime that you're saving these is somewhere above the 75% mark when you're saving, right? So for instance, if this was $5 for $15, that would be excellent. But because it's $5 for $10, I'm only saving $5. Because I'm only saving $5, it's not considered a great CCU. But another thing you have to consider is the fact that it is below $100. Below $100 CCUs are rare. So you have to also consider how rare is the CCU. Below 100 is fairly rare, and above 600 is fairly rare. Now, it also depends on how common the upgrades are, right? So you'll often find that an upgrade to a Carrick is commonly found. But you don't have to worry about how rare these things are right now. All we got to do is worry about how to connect them. So if I bought a Sulian to Spartan upgrade, right? What that means is I now own a Spartan as long as I have a Sulian to upgrade from. So let's say this is the ship I own, a Sulian, and we'll assume that the ES, from the ES, somebody gifted us Aurora ES to Sulian upgrade because they were like, you can't be flying around in that nonsense, right? So now we have a Sulian, and this is the ship that is in our hangar. This is the ship that we actually own. The Spartan is the ship that we have an option to upgrade to. Let me show you what the upgrade screen looks like. So if we purchased an upgrade, this is kind of what the screen would look like. If we go up here, you can see all this is I went to my hangar, and I went to and then you click here, and then you can select what you want to look at. So if I go to upgrades, it will only show me the upgrades that I purchased on the previous screen that we were on. So let's go to this one. As you can see, this is Spartan to Gladius. Okay, so this is Spartan to Gladius, and this is a standard edition. You see how it says standard edition? That means I paid credits for it, or it was not required for me to spend cash on it, even if I did spend cash on it. Okay, now if we scroll down, we'll see I have a Prowler to 600i Explorer Warbond Edition. That means it was only available for cash, which means I purchased it with cash. So what if I want to actually apply these upgrades? Well, I would go here to apply upgrade. So in the case of the ship that we started with, the Sulian to the Spartan, I would go find the Sulian to Spartan, upgrade. I would go to apply upgrade. And then here, it will ask me what ship I want to apply it to. Here, I would select the ship that I wanted to apply it to. I would go to next, and then you would type in your password and then hit apply. Now, I won't be applying this right now, but I'm just giving you an example of how this system works so you know exactly which screen to go to when you have to apply these. We're back at our original screen. Now you know that if you actually wanted to purchase a Spartan, you would go to that upgrade screen and you would hit Sulian to Spartan. You would find the Sulian to Spartan Warbond Edition upgrade. You would hit apply upgrade. Then you would select which ship you wanted to upgrade from. In that case, it would have been the Sulian. And then you would put in your password, and then you would hit apply, and boom, now you have a Spartan. However, that is how you apply an upgrade, but what we suggest is that you do not apply your upgrades until your entire chain is completed, because then you have the option to take out a CCU of lesser value and put in one that is of a better value. Let me give you an example. There may be a time where instead of getting a Spartan, there is an option to get, let's say, an M50. Now you can see it's a $30 difference, but imagine if they had a $20 Warbond Edition, right? So that would mean I would, let's go even crazier. Let's say $25 Warbond Edition. So if they had $25, that means I would be getting the upgrade to this ship, which is $100. I would pay $75 for it. But if I have a Sulian, I only have to pay $5 for it. And that is the key here, right? If I was to buy a Sulian to Spartan upgrade, I pay $5, but I get $10 worth of value. I'm paying $5 to get from $70 to $80. That's where the value comes in for the CCU or the upgrade. My value that I get out of that is $5 because 75 and I'm getting an $80 ship for $75. In this case, I would be getting a $100 ship for $75. You could see how I would only, in both situations, I only spend $5. But in the case of the Spartan, I only get $5 worth of value from spending my $5. In the case of the M50, I would get $25 worth of value for only spending $5. So now you can see why if you would have applied the Spartan upgrade, you would no longer be able to get the M50 upgrade because you'd be past the price threshold. So that's kind of the deal with why we don't apply our CCUs until they are connected. What does a connected CCU look like? Well, I've tried to figure out how I would show this, and it's fairly simple, right? Essentially, any war bond that you upgrade to, so let's assume we had a Sulian to M50 war bond, right? That is one war bond. But if I wanted to go above that, right? So let's say I already bought the Sulian to M50. Now I'm going to buy an M50 upgrade. All right. And the M50 upgrade, the Argo Raft, a common one. If I was to get the Argo Raft from the M50, and let's say it's a similar deal. The Raft is having a $20 war bond, which means for $5, I can get a Raft if I have an M50. So I would pay $105, right? That's what my total spent would have been up to this point. And I would have a ship that is worth $125. Now that's if I was coming from an M50 not having done the Sulian thing. But because we did the Sulian thing and we saved $25 from the Sulian, remember we had the Sulian for $70 and then we spent $75 to get the M50. So now we've only spent $75 and we have an M50 which is valued at $100. If we want to go from the M50 to the Raft, we spend another $5 and then we have the Raft at $125. But in total, all the money we would have spent would be $80 because we spent $5 from the Sulian to the M50, and then we spent another $5 from the M50 to the Raft. And the way that this would work, of course, you are looking for the options. When you see options available, this one has 3. And let me explain to you what that is. So if I click this, right, this has 2 versions of the standard edition, because this is a special edition. So right now, if I upgrade to this ship, I will get a C1 Spirit, I will get a Best in Show paint, and a Best in Show poster. So that's just showing you what I get. Now, in this version, you can also get that for War Bond. So you can see if you get the War Bond edition, it includes an extra amount of insurance. If you watched my previous video, then you already know it always takes the highest insurance. If you only had 6-month insurance and you upgrade to this, that 6-month insurance goes away and you go to 120. Now, if this said 6 months and you already had 120, the 6-month still goes away and the 120 would overwrite it. The highest insurance always overwrites. So if you start with something called an LTI token, which is something that is below the price of $50 that you have purchased with real money that has lifetime insurance, and you upgrade from that, such as the Sulian when it first arrived, right? Except that one was above $50. That one was $70. But if we upgraded, we would always have lifetime insurance on everything because, again, the highest insurance overrides. So we're going to click this just so you can kind of see. You see how the difference is 100 from here, and we're going to a ship that is 125. So that should cost us 100. That should cost us $25. That's the difference between these two. But what we're looking at is a $15 difference. This is how the CCU game works. We are effectively trying to buy larger ships for as cheap as possible by connecting the CCUs. So in our case, let's go back and do a quick review. So just so you understand how this part works, actually we'll go even further back. We started this journey with the Aurora ES. Our friend essentially gave us $50 so that we could upgrade from the Aurora ES to the Sulia, okay? So this we didn't have to pay for because our friend gifted it to us. It's not required, but this is a common occurrence, right? Our friend wants us to have a better ship to fly around the verse with, so they gifted us $50 on our birthday, and this is the way they gifted it to us. So now we no longer have an Aurora, we have a Sulian. All right. So then from the Sulian, we decided we wanted a little bit of a better ship, so we went with the M50. Now, the M50 had a war bond. Currently it doesn't, but when we upgraded, it had a war bond for $25. That means I only had to spend $5 because my value is worth 70. I only had to spend $5 to get to an M50, which means I've only spent $25 out of my own pocket, but the ship is worth $75. Because the ship is worth $75 and it is an M50, I have currently saved, as far as the game is concerned, $25 because I got to a $100 ship by only spending $75. But personally, I've only spent $25. Now I can say, all right, I have an M50. I have my hot rod racer, right? I have $100 worth of value here, all right? And I want to go to a C1. If I want to do that, I can pay the full price at $25 if I only have credits. Of course, I would get this edition because it comes with extra stuff for the same price, but this is a limited time offer. This won't be available all the time. But if I'm willing to spend $15 in real money, I get the War Bond edition, which comes with all of that stuff anyway, and is only $15. So the game is rewarding me for spending real money instead of spending my credits. So I would, at this point, have, as far as in-game spending, I would have spent $80 to get a, well, no, it's $15 now. So I would have spent $95, but I would have a C1 Spirit for $125, which means I would have saved $30 just from upgrading to it like this, rather than just buying it outright for the price. Now, another option, obviously, is you could just buy this ship outright with the War Bond edition, which means they'll be selling this ship, considering that you're saving, what, $10 from it? They would be selling this ship for $115, which means you could just pay $115 and purchase this ship. Now, why would you do that if you could save an additional $20 by doing it the way we just did it? If you were not doing CCU chains, if you were not upgrading, you would have no choice but to spend around $115 for this ship. But because of the way we did it, you are paying $95. Well, in this case, you can even subtract 50 from that and say you've only paid $45 because you got a gift. I can't guarantee your friends will give you gifts. But this part is the crux of what we do. Now, what the goal is to connect the war bonds to where there's no spaces in the middle where you have to use credits. We're scrolling down here just to try to find one that connects, right? Ah, this one's perfect. All right, let's say I have a prospector, right? It's my mining ship, but I've been mining for so long and it's my only ship that I'm like, I need to try something else, but I want something a little better, right? So I go and I'm like, maybe I'll try my hand at exploration. and I'll get one of these Zeus. And I'm like, oh, that's $20. If you look here, it's $155 to $175. That's gonna cost me $20 if I want to upgrade from a prospector to a Zeus. But then I see options are available here, so I can click on this and I can see that, oh, if I get the War Bond edition, it only costs me $5, which means, assuming that we're starting with the prospector, we have $155 and we will have only spent $160 to get a $175 ship. So we are paying $5 for a $15 savings. Because we are saving that much, we can say that the value of our Zeus Mark II ES once we purchase this is $165. It won't be $175 because we've only spent $165. Or I'm sorry, it'll be $160. It'll be $160. It won't be $175. It'll be $160. Let's go down. Let's assume we jumping to the next step. Now we have our Zeus. Now it'll say $175 here, but that's just to let you know you cannot upgrade. You cannot upgrade to any ship that is less value than $175. If you look here, there are no available war bonds at the $185 mark. Now, if I click out of this and we scroll back down to that same place we were at, the $185 mark, you can see there are 2 available ones. Now, why would these not show up when I had my Zeus ES clicked? Because you can see it's $175 value. We only spent $165, but the value of the ship is still $175. Now, to us, if we were to melt it, we would only get $165 back. But the value of the ship, as far as the game is concerned, is still $175. So if I was to click here, you can see it's $165. So if my ship, the ship's value as far as the game is concerned, is not below $165, I cannot upgrade to it. Even though the value of this ship as far as the game is concerned is $185. So I cannot upgrade from a $175 ship to a $185 ship if I'm getting the War Bond edition. If I was to try to get this ship, you see the Zeus is not an option. In order to spend $165, I would have to find a ship that was at least $160 or less in order for me to upgrade to this. Remember that upgrade that we did earlier where we went from the prospector to the Zeus? Remember we spent $5 to get $15, right? We got $15 out of this and we spent $5. We spent $5 and we got 15. We would have $160 spent, but we'd have $175 worth of value. Now, if instead of going to the Zeus, we went directly to the Ghost, now you can see we're spending $10 to get what? To get $20 worth of value. So we would have spent $165, but we would have a value of $185. Now you tell me, would you rather have spent $160 and have a value of $175, or spent $165 and had a value of $185? You can see which one is the better deal. So it would have made more sense for me to skip that previous War Bond and go directly to this one if I had a prospector, because I'm getting more money for what I'm spending. I spend 10, but if you, again, look at the value, I get 20. Now, the percentage is better on the other upgrade because you spend 5 and you get 15. The actual money savings are more when you consider this. So you have to determine, are you trying to get your percentage down, or is it the actual money you want to save? Because if you spend more, you tend to save more, but if you spend less, your percentages stay higher. Generally, you can go for the percentages. And the reason you can go for the percentages is because that's when there's no war bonds to connect, you want the highest percentage savings so that the next time something happens to connect, you will get, again, the highest percentage savings. And then that's going to maximize your CCU chain, because every time we do this, we will eventually have a list of upgrades that is very long. And that list of upgrades will essentially be what we can get if we keep applying those upgrades. One of the things I noticed is while you're doing this, it can get confusing for how to track these things. Like, how do I know what to upgrade to, what the values are, and things like that? So we always explain to people that the best thing for you to do is to create something that you can track it with. And we generally use Sheets, Google Sheets, or Excel spreadsheets or something like that. And let me show you just a little peek of something that I use. You can pause the video and copy it if you need to. But essentially, these are all the ships and what they can be upgraded to. Not all the ships, but all the ships that I recommend. You can make this from your own, and you can edit this however you want. But essentially, I begin with whatever ship. Let's say I'm beginning with a P52, an extra one. Maybe I got it as a referral or something. I got a P52. Oh, actually, that should be down here. All right, let's say I have a P52, which is worth $35, right? And I want to upgrade that to a ship that is going to be more useful for me. So I upgrade it to an Avenger Titan. This would say that this is a $35 ship. And we can make that look the same, just so you kind of get the gist. All right, this ship is $35. I'm beginning with a $35 ship. From the $35 mark, if I spend $25, I will have an Avenger Titan. That is $60. So if I have an Avenger Titan, you see how this says from 35? That's because this was 35. This says from 60 because the Avenger Titan was $60. Now, if I spend 15, I can get to an Arrow. If I spend 20, I will get to a Nomad. And if I spend 25, I can get to an Avenger Warlock. Now, why would that matter? Obviously, there are $65 ships. There are $70 ships. So what we look for are at least a $15, a $10 difference in the pricing. So the only ship I would upgrade to an Avenger Titan from to get to something else, I would want that ship to be at least $10 more. Now, why would I want that ship to be at least $10 more? Because the best CCU you're going to see is you spend $5 to get $10. Now, because we're trying to maximize our percentages, we don't even want the $10 ones. At the lowest, we want a $15 CCU, which means the difference from the price of the ship I currently have, if right now it would be the Titan at $60. The difference from that ship to the next ship should be at least $15 difference, which means I would be going from a $60 ship to a minimum of a $65 ship. That allows us to get a $5 CCU with $15 of value, and that is the minimum that we should be looking for as far as our percentages that we're trying to get on our CCUs. So let's say I did get an Arrow CCU and it was $5 for $15. So now this ship, mind you, I didn't get a CCU from here to here, so I have spent the entire $60. I didn't get a Warbond CCU from here, so I spent the entire $60 with money, no credits. Or I could have spent credits on it. It doesn't matter. I have $60 invested in the game, and that $60 got me to a Titan. Then I've spent $65 to get to an Arrow, which I'm getting $15 of value from the Arrow, but I'm only spending $5 to get it. So now I've spent $65, but I have a $75 ship. Well, if you look here, this only gives you $15 from 70. And the value of our ship is 75. Remember that. The value is what we have to go to the next step from, not what we've spent. So because the value is 75, I can no longer use this block. I would have to jump to this block for my next Warbond CCU. So if I was to say, now this says from 90 or 80, but it could also be from 75. Obviously, you just add $5 to each one of these prices. So let's say, here, we can change it now, or 75. And then we can just change all these prices. I fixed my math. The arrow, if we were going from the arrow, you could see how it would be plus 35, plus 40 if we wanted to get to a Talon, plus 45 if we wanted to get to a Legionnaire. Why do I have these numbers here? Let's say I do have an arrow at 75. If I was trying to get to a Cutlass Black, which is $110, so I'll put these numbers up here just so it's easier to track what we're doing here. And this ship is 75, right? We're trying to get from the $75 arrow, it's worth 75, even though we've only spent $60 on it, or 65 on it. We've only spent 65 to get here, but it is worth 75. And we're trying to get to a $110 Cutlass Black. Let's say the war bond is you spend $10, right? So I would have spent 85 now. And I get all the way to the Cutlass Black by only spending $10. So that means that I would have got 15 plus 10, that's 25. I would have spent $10 to get 110, or $10 to get $25, or $35. So it's a $35 difference, but it's a $25 is my savings. I spent 10 and I got 25. That's a pretty decent CCU. So now we can delete this and delete this. And now we have 110, and we can go back to here. And let's say, actually, we'll keep it here. This is the amount that we've actually spent, right? So the amount we've actually spent is now we spent 60 here to get here. Then we spent 5 on an arrow, which would be 65. Then to get from the arrow to the Cutlass Black, we spent another 10. So that means we've spent 75, right? To get to where we are. Okay, so we spent 75. That's how much we've actually spent. And now we have a $110 ship. And so the way that you can kind of use this, I mean, you don't have to use it the way I use it. You can use it whatever way you want. And then these are my little legends for my actual chains up here. But the idea is that all these numbers up here are showing you how much it takes to get to the next one. So you know whether the next CCU that comes out should interest you or not. So if I look at a C1 here, I could just pick anyone out of here, right? If I look at a C1, I know if I'm coming from 110, that's $15 more. So the C1 is $125. So if I have, if I'm trying to get to a C1, and I know all I have is an arrow, I'm going to be looking for anything in between to get me here. So I'm going to be looking for Gladius to Cutlass Black, Gladius to Talon, Gladius to Talon Shrike, Gladius to Legionnaire, or arrow to Cutlass, arrow to Gladius, arrow to Talon, arrow to Talon Shrike, arrow to Legionnaire. All of those are going to still get me close to the C1. I'm also going to be looking for potentially an arrow to Avenger Warlock, because that's $10. I could still get a $5 CCU to that. Now, again, we don't suggest those, but that's something that could be an option for you. Now, same way, I'm looking for Nomad to Gladius, Nomad to Cutlass Black, Nomad to Talon, Nomad to... all of these things, Avenger Warlock to Gladius, Avenger Warlock, because I want anything that is more expensive than my arrow to be connected to that C1 with a discount, and that would be our war bond. So at the C1 level, right, 125 is what the value of a C1 is, and I'm trying to save money coming from an arrow. All I need is one of these connected to any one of these, or directly connected to this one, and I'm golden. Okay, so that is what you're looking for. You're trying to find the 2 ships on this list, right? here's the rest of the list. Well, here's a big section of the list in the middle. And then here's the rest of the list. I only went up to hull C because after the hull C, it's pretty much only like 1 or 2 ships that you can upgrade from. So at that point, you know, you don't really need a list to keep track. Let's break down again what happened. Basically, you start with a $35 ship. Every time you upgrade, you're trying to save money every time you upgrade. Whether it's $5, $10, $15, $20, all the way up to, I think the biggest one I've ever seen is $60. So that's just the one I've seen. I'm sure there could have been bigger ones, but that's the biggest one I've seen. So the way you would do it is you purchase an upgrade. So let's just go straight through the top here, just so it's easy to follow. I could go a P-52 to an Avenger Titan. I can go have an Avenger Titan to an Arrow to a Gladius to a Cutlass Black. All right, I can purchase all of those with credits. By the end of it, I will have paid 110. If I spend money on it, if I buy war bonds, it is possible that I get from the P-52 to the Cutlass Black only spending $75, even though it's a $110 ship. If I was to do that all the way down, it's very possible that I get a Cutlass Black, which is $110, for $75 if I connect chains of CCUs or upgrades. CCU and upgrades are the same exact thing. So if I get an upgrade from here to here, saving 10, from here to here, saving 10, from here to here, saving 15, now I have saved $35 on a Cutlass Black. That's how we do CCU chains. I'm sure I missed something. I'm sure there's something that's not in there. I'm gonna try to think at the end here. We want to connect CCU chain to CCU chain. So we want to connect the war bond to the war bond. So if I got the Avenger Titan, let's say I got the Avenger Titan, Avenger to the Arrow, and let's say that was a war bond. All right, and let's say I'm trying to get to the Cutlass Black. If I'm trying to get to the Cutlass Black, all right, my goal is to get from the Avenger to the Cutlass Black, right? In order to connect these with a war bond, I would need an Arrow to Cutlass Black war bond, all right? If I'm trying to connect my war bonds, that's how I want it to connect. Obviously, I could get a Arrow to, let's say, Avenger Warlock. All right, this would be standard. Okay, I can go Avenger Arrow. I have an Avenger to Arrow war bond, right? Let's say I saved $10 on that. All right, Avenger to Arrow, I saved $10. Then there's Arrow to Avenger Warlock. There's 0 savings there. And then I can go Arrow to Cutlass Black. I wouldn't be able to do Arrow to Cutlass Black anymore. This would have to be Warlock to Cutlass Black. Now, if I do Warlock to Cutlass Black, maybe I still save some money. Let's say I save $5. So I'd have a total savings of 15 if I did it this way. We don't want to do that. We don't want anything in between our war bonds. We want to connect war bond to war bond, and then you maximize your savings. And now we've saved 35. You can see the difference. If we would have bought something with credits in between here because we were in such a hurry to get to our Cutlass Black rather than waiting, we would have only saved $15. But because we waited to connect a war bond to a war bond, Avenger Arrow was a whole war bond upgrade, and then Arrow to Cutlass was a whole war bond upgrade. And this is how much we saved. We went from saving $15 to saving $35. That is $20 extra just because we connected a war bond to a war bond instead of a war bond to a standard edition. I hope that makes sense. The idea is, and the reason that people say they wait for CCUs, they wait for war bonds, is because they're trying to connect a war bond to a war bond, because that's essentially saying this is the best deal that you're going to get. Now, maybe along your chain, you selected the wrong ship somewhere. Well, the idea is that you should be able to cut that section out and replace it with a different section. You keep the old war bond you had until it's completely replaced, and then you can melt those war bonds. Now, the reason you do this is, and this is why we don't apply them, is because there might be a better war bond down the road. Now, this is a Cutlass Black, right? And I'm getting it for 25. Now, what if, and this is a big what if there was an Avenger to Cutlass Black war bond? Now I don't need the arrow. So if I would have applied the arrow, if this was an arrow here, and I had already applied it, I wouldn't even be able to use the Avenger to Cutlass Black upgrade. Because if that was to happen, now I'm going from a $60 ship to a $110 ship, which means, and let's say I would probably have to pay $10 for that. I didn't save anything up here, but I paid $70 and now I have a $110 ship. I saved $40 instead. So now if I went directly from an Avenger to a Cutlass Black, I could have saved $40 if I didn't apply that CCU. But that's why we say just keep them. So you'll eventually have something that looks like this, right? And then the next one might be, let's say hull B. And then the next one might look like, depending, let's say we're trying to get to a SRV. And then we go, all right, this gets us from an Avenger, a $60 ship, all the way to an SRV, which is a $165 ship. So if we followed this, and let's just say for the sake of math, that we paid $5 for every upgrade, all right? So five here, this is how much we've spent. We're gonna say we started with an Avenger, so we're gonna say we've spent 65 to get here at the end of this, all right? We've spent 70 to get here. We spent 75 to get here. We spent 80 to get here. And then we spent 85 to get here. This is how much we've spent. Now, when we got our war bonds, we're gonna do our savings here and then value here. All right, so let's say now the Arrow is a $75 ship. Cutlass Black is a $110 ship. The hull B, let's see, the hull B is 140, and the Freelancer Max is 150. Okay, so Freelancer Max is 150, and then the SRV is 165. We spent 65 to get an Arrow, which means we saved $10. If you're wondering why this is a longer video, I'm trying to explain it in a lot of different ways so that maybe one way you understand it, maybe you don't understand it the other way. So I'm trying to explain it in a lot of different ways. We spent 60 on an Avenger, right? Let's say that's our starter pack, right? We paid another $5, right, to get to our Arrow, but now we have a value of 75 and we saved 10. Now, to get from our Arrow to our Cutlass Black, we paid another $5, so now we spent a total of 70 from our original 60. We're adding 5 because this cost, the war bond cost $5 to purchase. And now we have the value of 110. So now, just between this one and this one, we've saved $40. Now, from the Cutlass Black to the hull B, we spent 75. Let's say this is all we've spent. From this 60, we've only spent $15 more. Now we have a value of 140. So now we've saved 65. Now, mind you, these numbers are absolutely ridiculous. You would never save this much, but I'm just giving you an example of how it works. So the hull B to Freelancer Max, all right? So now we've only spent another $5, but now we've saved a full-on $70. All right, and then from the Freelancer Max to here, now we've saved $80. So we would have spent $85 to have a $165 ship. This would have cost, the upgrade, the Avenger to Arrow upgrade would cost $5. Or Arrow to Cutlass, $5. Cutlass Black to Hull B, $5. Hull B to Freelancer Max, $5, right? This is assuming that you're spending money on each one of these, but you see how they're connected. It's Avenger to Arrow, Arrow to Cutlass, Cutlass to Hull B to Freelancer Max to SRV. There are no standard editions, which means I did not use any credits in between here. There are plenty of ships that could fit in between here with credits. That's not the goal. The goal is to connect Warbond to Warbond. The end of this one, the 2 ship from this one, the from ship to this one. 2 ship, from ship. 2 ship, from ship. 2 ship, from ship. Until you get to your goal. And the more you do that, the more you will save. If you start to add some in here because you get a little antsy, that's fine. You can do that. It's up to you. It's your money. And sometimes you just don't want to put any more money into the game. You can do that as well. Just know that you are giving up some version of savings. Now, sometimes it's kind of impossible, right? And let me give you an example of what that looks like. The Scythe is one of the most rare ships in the entire game. So if the only thing I could get is a Scythe to Mole upgrade, that is pointless because I'm never going to get my hands on a Scythe. So because that ship is so rare, it wouldn't make sense for me to get that CCU. So I would probably have to fill in one of these blanks to get to the next part of the CCU. So sometimes you're forced into buying a certain ship or spending $5 in credits or $10 in credits between here and there. That's assuming you have credits. This whole time we've been assuming you have credits. You may not have credits. So you may not have anything to fill this in with except money. Even your standard editions would be using real money, which would be even more of a reason to wait until you have a war bond that connects like this. If you're going to spend money, you might as well get a discount from it. I think that is it. I think I've covered it pretty well. Again, if you were confused by some of the terms that I used, then make sure you go and watch our original CCU guide. It used to be called the CCU guide in case you missed it. I changed it. It should be CCU guide, something for the basics or something like that. It's in my tutorial playlist. So it should be tutorials and explanations, that playlist. Go in there, check that one out first, then come back and watch this one if you found it a little bit confusing. I hope explaining it in all those different ways really got you to where you needed to go. But that's all I got. If you have questions, leave them in the comments or join our Discord and ask your questions, and we will try to help you. All right, that is it for this one. Thanks for spending your time with us. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.